So another month starts and you feel behind. The business isn't where you thought it would be. Your family doesn't look like what you wanted it to be. Maybe you or even the people around you are not where you were hoping they would be. You thought they'd be a lot further by now. You thought maybe you'd be richer or wiser or somehow more mature or developed, or life would just look and feel different by now than it does. And you're disappointed. And when we live in disappointment long enough, it can get exhausting. So, if you're tired of being disappointed in yourself, this episode is going to be really helpful, not just to adjust perspective and beliefs that you have been defaulting to, that disappointment that you've been choosing, but to actually give you practices and behaviors that you can use to do something about it. And as you've heard me say, and as I like to say, create the life that you were created for. Now, here's the beautiful thing about you and most people who tune into this podcast. It's that you have goals. You want to grow. You have a deep desire to do incredible good for the people in the world around you. I'll show love to anybody. I think that's important, especially as a follower of Jesus. But I'll spend time with people like you. I really want to surround myself with people like you, okay? That's a beautiful thing, to be a high performer, to have your focus on the goals and the things that you want to accomplish. But the problem for people like us is that oftentimes we connect product to personhood. Now, I've talked about this at length before, actually in last week's episode on the surprising secrets to key performance. But what happens when we equate our output with our value, another way to say it, we equate our output with our identity, is that's when we really can get into trouble, because it sets us up for two really, really sad things, right? We either have fleeting happiness when things actually go right, woohoo, or we have constant disappointment. Why? Because, the goalposts are always moving and it feels so personal, right? Like I didn't hit that goal, and man, what does that say about me? I didn't get the result that I wanted. Oh man, what kind of person am I? But while in another episode, I actually gave you guardrails, those boundaries to build into your life so that you can create a structure where you actually separate identity from outcome. Today, I want to give you 3 steps to getting unstuck and actually change the pattern of constant disappointment. This is going to be so freeing for some of you. And the first is this. What we want to do is we want to dissect the disappointment. Dissect the disappointment. You often hear me say emotions are a signal. They're signaling to some kind of unmet need or boundary that's been crossed or something else underneath. Well, disappointment, just like our other uncomfortable emotions, is a signal. And what does it signal? Well, it often points to a desire that has been frustrated. But the problem is sometimes we're disappointed and we're not exactly sure why. Here's how you get clarity about that. You dissect your disappointment. You get clear about what that desire actually is underneath. Because until we are clear about it, we're just going to stay stuck and we're not actually going to do anything productive about it. Let me give you an example. For a long time, I thought I wanted to go on tour with some of my favorite music artists. You may or may not know that I like writing music. I write music. I release it on Spotify under my name. Most of it is in Spanish language. And so for a long time, my desire, or at least I thought my desire, was to go on tour and go all over Latin America and share my songs with the world. But the more I drilled down, I realized, my desire isn't actually to leave my family, to go on plane ride after plane ride, to go from city to city and have pretty brief interactions with people. You don't have deep relationships with people who come to a concert and just kind of listen to the music or even sing it along with you. There aren't deep connections there. That's not actually my desire. And so I had to dissect and go deeper and deeper. That's exactly what I want you to do. What's the desire under the desire? And what I realized is that I actually wanted to add value to people. I wanted to give them, still do, give them language for deep things in their heart and in their spirit. And when and where possible, give them perspective through some kind of breakthrough in the storytelling of the song that I'm writing, or in connected content on social media or in emails. Help people really take their next steps. That was the real desire underneath. And when I recognized not the frustrated surface level desire, but the deeper desire underneath, it unlocked my next steps. So what I want you to do is I want you to ask, what do I really want? Okay, I'm frustrated, I'm disappointed. What's the desire? And then I want you to push yourself and I want you to ask, what's under the desire? What is it that I really want that feels frustrated right now? So the first thing we want to do is we want to dissect the disappointment. But the second thing we want to do is to disciple the desire. Now, that word might be new to you. We've heard of disciplines, living a disciplined life, having habits and routines and rhythms that create the outcomes that we want. I like the root word of all of those other words of discipline and so forth, the word disciple. Now, a lot of times this shows up in faith circles. We think of a disciple of any faith figure. I think of a disciple of Jesus. But what it means is becoming like that teacher, becoming like that master. Now, here's the thing about becoming. You're actually becoming all the time. In other words, we could say you are being discipled all the time. When you go to the mall, there are forces shaping what you think, what you believe about the world, at least forces that want to shape you in specific ways. When you're listening to the radio, or let's be honest, it's probably more your Apple Music or your Spotify playlist. You're being shaped. The storytelling, the thoughts, the worldview, the perspective is shaping your perspective about the world or opportunities or women or riches or so on and so forth. You're being formed by the music you listen to. Even the friend group that you surround yourself with is forming you into something. In other words, we're all being discipled all the time. But what I'm saying is I want to give the power to you, and I want you to disciple your own desires. So think of the phrase to disciple as to train. And that's exactly what we want to do with our desires. We want to train our hearts to pursue the deeper, the better, the more sophisticated, the more people-centered, the higher desires. When we just go after surface level desires, well, we're not actually going to be satisfied, even if we hit the goal, even if we get a certain outcome, because we're just focused on this surface level. What happens though when we go deeper, and this is so important for getting us unstuck from a default to disappointment, when we go a level deeper, we actually realize, hey, fulfilling that desire, I would say good and others-centered and God-given desire, actually might be closer than we thought. We might actually have it in spaces and places that are closer, more accessible, relationships that we have even now, or that we're 1 degree away from. You see how this works to get out of the rut of disappointment. When you really disciple your desire, not just stay, yeah, I think I want this, but you go to that deeper level, you recognize, wait a second, I can fulfill that desire. I can add value to people in different ways. So let me give you an example here. For the longest time, even though I wouldn't admit it, I equated music listeners to my value as a person. So you think the more listeners I have on Spotify or YouTube or wherever, the more valuable I am as a person. And of course, that's hard, especially when you're starting out, especially when you don't have a lot of listeners beyond, your mom and your cousins and the people that already support you anyway. In fact, it's not just hard, it's exhausting. And then once I realized that's a surface level and kind of a low quality desire, what I actually want is not approval or fandom, but respect and love. I realized, wait a second, I already have that in my family. I don't have to go looking for that somewhere else. My wife and my kids and other people in our lives, I already have that question settled in my heart. And what I realized is that what I want through my music is to impact listeners' lives through, yeah, well crafted songs, but also through experiences. And so once I discipled the desire, not just stayed at the surface level, kind of low quality level, but really thought, what is it that I want? And train myself to go after that thing. Well, then it led to concert workshops where I was in a cafe there in the city of Chicago, and we were singing original songs, but also investing in people's lives in a way that they would walk out of there not just entertained, but educated in a way that they could take action in their relationships and in their mental and their emotional health. It went from, hey, listen to my new single to actually helping people grow. You see the power of discipling our desire. So you want to train, you want to disciple your desire so that the thing you really want, you're actually going after. You're not settling for surface level or low quality that, if you got it, you wouldn't be satisfied by, but you're actually going after the thing that you want. So we want to dissect our disappointment. We want to disciple the desire. And here's the third and final, but so important step to break the pattern of disappointment, and that's to direct your destiny. You see, it's one thing to identify a problem, and that's important. It's even better to have the right information about how to address and solve the problem, and that's, of course, important too. But it's best to implement and actually take action on the information about what you've identified as the problem. And here's the big question for us. How do we implement anything? One step at a time. In fact, a friend of mine recently told me, you're not what you know, but what you do. And what he was getting at is that you can know a lot about, let's say, investment and saving and retirement plans and real estate. But if you don't actually do any of it, then you won't get the result. And you won't have the real estate portfolio or the retirement package that you thought you would have. In fact, there's a shocking number of financial advisors who literally know the best steps about money management and they help others to take those steps, but they don't actually do it themselves. The same is true for doctors. They know about healthy living. They help others take steps toward healthy living, but there are a lot of doctors who don't do it themselves. Not all of them, but what I'm trying to get at is there's a huge disconnect between information and implementation. And so if you want to get unstuck from being frustrated, take your next baby step. Did you know that literally your brain gets a shot of dopamine, that reward system that's built into our brain when you make progress toward a goal? Sure, when you finish it, but even long before you finish it and just make progress toward it. It's been said progress is happiness. And here's the great news. You get to choose, even if it's a baby step. I remember first setting up the infrastructure to help people be emotionally healthy and fully alive. This is a year and some change ago. And I remember the day that I bought the domain, weskennedy.co. I was nervous, but I was so excited at the same time. Now, I hadn't put anything there. There was no content on it. I hadn't done anything yet. But purchasing the domain name was a baby step. Like I said, that was a little over a year ago. And in the last 30 days, almost 800 people have gone to it and hopefully gotten value out of it. But that wouldn't have happened without that tiny baby step. You get to direct your destiny. A friend of mine told me once, Wes, do you know when the best time to plant a tree is? He goes, 10 years ago. Good one. He says, but do you know the second best time to plant a tree is? Today. And you get to take a baby step or a large leap. It's up to you today. What I'm saying is that this is a key to get unstuck from the default to disappointment. Something that you can do like right now. So friend, you don't have to default to disappointment. Your life is not a disappointment. You are not a disappointment. Hey, I get it. We want to grieve our losses. That's actually really healthy and really important, but we don't have to live there. Because when we do, that actually gets exhausting. And it doesn't allow you to create the life that you and only you were created for. The people around you need you to get unstuck. I need you. We need you. The world needs you to get out of disappointment and into your destiny. So dissect it. What do you desire? Disciple it. Is that the desire that matters most, or is there something better, even deeper than that? Train your heart and choose to go after that better one. And finally, direct it. What is your next baby step? Hey, you get dopamine. Boo. Put in the comment below, which of those are you going to do today? And if you want my personal help creating that life as a professional, as a parent, as a pastor, whatever role or responsibilities you have, well, I get to walk with people and help them do this all the time. So I'd love to talk. Go ahead and book a time with me in the link in the description. But friend, you got this, and we'll see you in the next one. God bless.